There are moments in your life where you missed danger by seconds, avoided disasters your intuition didn't warn you about, or got opportunities without the usual grind. And while you were busy thinking, wow, that was close, your unseen backup was probably somewhere rolling their eyes like, do you see now why we keep pulling overtime for this one? Even your miraculous recoveries probably have them shaking their heads like exhausted parents watching a toddler sprint toward a wall. But here's where it gets intriguing. The higher your purpose climbs, the more elite your protection becomes. You don't attract this kind of cover by being ordinary. You attract it because your existence shifts things. You bring disruption, transformation, elevation, and sometimes even exposure just by showing up. And because of that, the universe, the divine, the unseen realm, whatever name you choose, has assigned forces to you that respond instantly, aggressively, and decisively the moment your destiny is threatened. So if you've ever wondered why certain people back off when they get too close, why some enemies can't follow through with their plans, or why certain situations collapse the moment they try to trap you, it's because someone with power you'll never fully comprehend is standing behind you with the universal equivalent of folded arms. You've got unknown allies in high places, and trust me, they take your safety a lot more seriously than you take your own. Number 1. You were marked for protection, long before you knew you needed it. There's a level of protection around your life that didn't begin when you became wiser, more spiritual, or more aware. It started long before you understood the weight sitting on your shoulders. You didn't grow into this covering. It was placed on you. You were marked for protection before you even had a direction, before you had language for the things you were tied to, and before you knew what you were actually walking toward. That's why so many things that should have destroyed you never even got close. You didn't survive because you were lucky. You survived because something higher already knew the level of warfare attached to your purpose. There are people who have had to fight for themselves their whole lives, but with you, there were moments when help came out of nowhere, doors closed right before disaster, and certain people were cut off from you without your input. Those weren't random seasons. That was your protection acting before your understanding caught up. You had unknown allies working behind the scenes long before you even learned their existence was possible. You didn't walk into this world unguarded. Life didn't wait for you to mature before putting you under surveillance. Your assignment came with a shield the same way a high-value package comes with tracking, alerts, and special handling. Even when you thought nobody was watching, your steps were being redirected, the wrong connections were being blocked, and the wrong relationships were being shut down. At the time, you might have been frustrated or confused. But looking back, you can see there were patterns of preservation around you that didn't match your decisions. Something outside of you was clearly working overtime. What's powerful is that you didn't have to earn this. You didn't have to pray the perfect prayer or hit a certain level of enlightenment. You were chosen, and the protection came with the choosing. You mattered before you even understood why.
Some people don't lose because they're weak. They lose because they touched the wrong bloodline. The moment they decided to move against you, they didn't just make an enemy. They signed a contract with consequences they don't understand yet. And here's the part that should sit heavy in their chest. You never had to fight back for the universe to respond. The second they aimed at you, something ancient stood up behind you and said, "Enough." That's what they keep miscalculating. They think they're targeting a person. They don't realize they're provoking a lineage. They don't realize they're tapping on a door that hasn't been opened in generations, and when it opens, it doesn't ask questions. Let me say this plainly, chosen one, because your enemies need to hear it through you. You are not protected because you're harmless. You're protected because you're important. You're not covered because you're lucky. You're covered because you carry weight. There's a male ancestor in your bloodline who does not play about you, and the more people test you, the louder his presence becomes. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to threaten anyone. The pressure speaks for itself. You've probably asked yourself, why does everything backfire on people who try me? Why do their plans fall apart without me lifting a finger? Why do they get nervous around me before they even know my story? Here's the answer they don't want you to realize. You are not standing alone in time. You are standing on top of it. Every move you make carries history. Every breath you take carries memory. And every hostile intention thrown your way runs into something older, sharper, and far less forgiving than modern games. Think of it like this. An enemy walks toward you thinking they're stepping onto open ground. What they don't see is the landmines buried by. You are still standing, still breathing, still undefeated, while they were betting on your collapse. Let that sink in. You are here, intact, aware, unbroken. The person who wanted to see you lose, who whispered your downfall into dark corners, who prayed for your delay and your destruction, badly failed. Not because they weren't determined, but because you were chosen, because you were capable, because help greater than human strategy stood beside you. And now there is nothing left that can truly stop you, because you have decided fully, consciously, and without apology, that you are moving forward into more success. This is not motivation for everyone. This is for the ones who survived pressure that should have crushed them, for the ones who were underestimated, watched, envied, and quietly opposed. For the ones who didn't just face resistance, but faced organized resistance. And yet here you are. Understand this clearly. Your survival is already a defeat for your enemies. Your clarity is already a loss for them. They wanted confusion. You found direction. They wanted hesitation. You found resolve. They wanted you exhausted, doubting yourself, shrinking back into something manageable. Instead, you're still rising. And that alone has rewritten the power dynamics. You may not have realized it at the time, but every delay strengthened you. Every silent battle sharpened you. Every moment you thought you were alone was actually preparation. Because chosen people don't win fast. They win inevitably. And that inevitability is what unsettles the enemy the most. Here's the truth they don't want you to accept yet. Once a person decides internally that they are done playing small, the game changes permanently. Not externally, internally. And the moment that internal decision locks in, the world starts responding differently. Doors don't just open. Obstacles start malfunctioning.
Airdrop's gonna be hot.
Opposition becomes desperate. People who once felt powerful around you start losing their grip. You don't even have to announce your intention. Your energy carries the message ahead of you. That's why control breaks around you. That's why people who run everything start running out of certainty when you walk in. Because you are no longer asking for space. You are the space. You are no longer seeking permission. You are operating from assignment. And there is a difference the world can feel instantly. You might be thinking, why did it have to be this hard? Why so much resistance if I was meant to succeed? Because pressure reveals capacity. Because ease never forges authority. Because the kind of success you are stepping into cannot be sustained by ego or luck. It requires depth, endurance, and alignment. What tried to stop you was not random. It was resistance to your trajectory. And now comes the dangerous part for them. You didn't just survive. You decided. You made a choice that most people never make. To stop negotiating with fear. To stop explaining yourself. To stop waiting for validation. When that decision lands, momentum becomes violent. Not chaotic, but unstoppable. Because a person who knows who they are and where they're going doesn't need approval, doesn't need noise, doesn't need to rush. They move with gravity. This is why nothing can block you now. Not because there will be no obstacles, but because obstacles no longer define you. You've already faced the worst part, the internal war, and you won. From this point forward, success isn't a question of if, but how much and how far. The path may still demand discipline, patience, and focus, but it no longer demands permission. You have crossed that threshold. So let them wonder how you're still standing. Let them feel uncomfortable around your certainty. Let them realize too late that what they tried to stop has already outgrown them. You are alive. You are protected. You are capable.
Sir, yes, sir.
And now you are decided.
Yes, sir.
Before
Yes,
we go any
sir.
further, take a moment to stand with us. If this message spoke to you, if it strengthened you, challenged you, or reminded you who you are, then support this work. Like this video so the message
I'm going
reaches
to
others
put
who
another
need
Garri
it.
in
Subscribe to the channel so you
next
don't miss
defensor.
what's coming next. And if you're able, consider supporting us through Super Thanks. Your support helps this team continue putting in the time, energy, and effort to create inspiring, life-changing,
Bro, that's
high-impact
not my
videos like
full
this. Content
problem,
that
bro.
empowers, awakens, and fuels
That's the
those who are
time.
meant for more.
Problem.
Number 1. True strength begins when you see
Thanks,
beyond
web
surface
problem.
power. Power built on appearance collapses the moment it meets someone who sees clearly. Listen closely, because this is where the real separation begins. You've been told your whole life that strength looks loud, dominant, untouchable. That the person who controls the room is the one with the most authority, the sharpest voice, the biggest shadow. That's the lie.
Nice.
True strength begins the moment you stop reacting to
Someone did
surface
negation up
power
on
and
North Shore
start
right now?
seeing what's
Or
underneath
North
it.
Passing?
And the reason you unsettle certain people is simple. You do exactly that without trying. He built himself to be unchallenged, not debated, not questioned, not examined. People orbit him with fear, admiration, dependence, or ambition. They respond to the layers, the title, the reputation, the posture, the history. And because no one ever looks past those layers, he's convinced himself that the layers are the power, that the armor is the man. That control is permanent. Until you walk in, you don't bow to the image. You don't freeze at the reputation. You don't adjust your tone to match his authority. And the moment you don't react the way everyone else does, something breaks. Not outwardly at first, but internally. Because power that depends on reaction dies in the presence of someone who doesn't play along. This is where you might ask yourself, why does this always happen around me? Why do confident people become tense, guarded, or strangely self-aware? It's not because you're aggressive. It's not because you're challenging them. It's because you see through performance instinctively. You respond to essence, not display.
No point.
And that's the one thing people who rely on dominance never prepare for. He walks through the world wearing a personality forged for survival, controlled, strategic, composed. It's a costume that's kept him safe and in charge for a long time. But around you, that costume feels wrong. Too heavy, too obvious, too artificial, because you don't reward it. You don't validate it. You don't fear it. You look straight through it. And that's what hits him. Not your courage, your clarity, not your confidence, your honesty. You engage with him as a human being, not a myth. You don't attack the armor, but you don't respect it either. You bypass it completely. And suddenly, he's exposed in a way he hasn't experienced before. You notice things others miss. The hesitation hidden behind certainty, the insecurity masked by command, the softness buried under hardness. You don't point it out, you don't confront it, but you see it. And being seen without consent is deeply destabilizing to someone who has spent years hiding behind authority. Here's the metaphor that matters. Everyone else argues with the shadow. You walk straight toward the source of the light. And when you do that, the shadow loses meaning. He's not used to that. He's never had defenses prepared for someone who doesn't fight the illusion, but ignores it. That's why his guard drops around you, even when he doesn't want it to. That's why his control slips without warning. That's why his confidence recalibrates in your presence. Not because you're trying to take power, but because you operate from a place where false power doesn't register. This is the mark of someone chosen, not by fate or belief, but by temperament. You are wired to see reality, not theater. And that alone is enough to shake anyone whose strength depends on being untouchable. Remember this, when armor fails, it's not because you struck it, it's because it was never real strength to
Guys,
begin with.
his defense
Number 2,
is
unpredictability becomes power when it comes from authenticity.
only defense.
When someone
no
can't predict
offensive.
you, they can't dominate you, and that's where fear begins. This is where your difference turns into undeniable leverage. Not because you planned it, not